Hello there, this is David from David Books and Comics, and today I want to talk about the holidays and holiday reading. And I'm going to go through a whole bunch of books that are compendiums of novels. They're book club editions or editions that contain more than one novel. So the first one you're seeing there is a beat up copy of Dashiell Hammett's novels. There's 5 of them. And of course, they're all great books, actually, all 5. But the ones I really enjoyed are the first 3. Red Harvest and the Dane Curse feature his detective, the Continental Op. They're really hard boiled, really gritty novels with the impeccable realism that only Hammett is capable of. Few are able to do what he does in his books, with the exception of maybe Donald Hamilton, who really mimics Hammett's style to a large degree. Anyway, so there's a good holiday read. Dashiell Hammett's 5 books. The ones I recommend are Red Harvest, Dane Curse, and The Maltese Falcon. And if you're really ambitious, you can read what's called the Foundation Trilogy by Isaac Asimov. And of course, this is really like Foundation and Empire, Second Foundation, are really fix-up novels, fix-up books. And if you read Foundation, you can tell it's a story, composed stories that are episodic in nature. My favorite of them all was the first book. Second Foundation I found unusual. The discovery of World's End, the mythical World's End, and the mysterious Second Foundation, and all that kind of stuff. All of that is in the book. You can tell where space opera got its roots. The Star Wars space opera got its roots. It's in Asimov's Foundation trilogy. All right, so that's that. That's nice, and there's young Asimov and his books. All right, so that's the Foundation trilogy. And if you want vintage spy fiction, you can always read John Buchan's Richard Hannay adventures. And it includes all 4 adventures. And I just have a look. 39 Steps being one of them. Beautiful Hodder and Stoughton. It's not book club, I suppose, but so 39 Steps, Green Mantle, Mr. Standfast, and the 3 Hostages. All right, this is a first edition. Not easy find, but kind of common in used bookstores if you're really looking. All right, so that's that. Also, if you're interested, there's also the Bounty Trilogy by Charles Nordhoff and James Norman Hall, or Nordhoff and Hall as they're affectionately known as. And you have Mutiny on the Bounty, Men Against the Sea, which is told from the perspective of Captain Bligh, who was the subject of the mutiny on the ship HMS Bounty, and Pitcairn's Island, where the pirates, or the people who mutinied, eventually settled. It's an interesting trilogy of books, if you want to call it a trilogy. And they can be read as singletons. All right. So that's the Bounty Trilogy, the Wyeth edition. Beautiful book. And if you want to read good science fiction, really good science fiction, in 2 volumes is this, The Treasury of Great Science Fiction. And what do we have here? An introduction by Anthony Boucher. And here's the books. Poole Anderson, Brainwave, The Lost Years, Dead Center by Judith Merrill, George A. Smith, Lost Art, Other Side of the Sky, Man Who Sold the Moon, and for the price of the book, which was a pittance that I paid for, there's The Stars Is My Destination by Alfred Bester. An excellent compendium of stories. The Lost Years is poetic in nature. Beautiful story, by the way, by an obscure fantasy, science fiction, I guess, author. And also, one book that I read from cover to cover is this one. And this one features an excellent compendium of stories, well worth reading for the holidays. It has John Wyndham's Rebirth, better known as The Chrysalids, one of the great novels of written in English in the genuine tradition of true science fiction. And another great novel, you can see the influences of A. Van Vogt on the writings of Isaac Asimov, especially a space opera with the Weapon Shops of Isher. Great novel. And like I said, similar to Asimov's trilogy. Anyway, so this is the way the binding goes. So you see it. Beautiful collection. Volume 1, Volume 2 of classic science fiction. Alright, so that's that one. Also, of course, if you're a fan, there's also the Elric saga. And there's no better way to read it than the saga editions, actually. This is part 2, part 1, and part 3. This is a book club edition, and it collects the first 6 novels that were published by Daw, telling the story of Elric of Melniboné. Beautifully written, fast-paced, genuine action, sword and sorcery action, as only Michael Moorcock can produce. Excellent series of books. And if you want to read great fantasy, sword and sorcery fantasy, during the holidays, this is the series to look at. If you have the time and the space, this is the series to read. You can also read this, the Dorian Hawkmoon books. And this one features the books that tell the alternate, as you can see, this is an alternate universe type story. And you can see Jewel in the Skull, Mad God's Amulet, The Sword of the Dawn, and the Rune Staff. It's a beautiful American edition. Eternal Champion Volume 3, it says there. Beautiful cover. Well worth what I paid for, which was next to nothing because it was a gift. Okay, so that's Hawkmoon. That's Michael Moorcock. Now, and you know I enjoy these. These are the Gods in Darkness, the 3 novels of Cain, and by Carl Edward Wagner, published by Nightshade Books. And they are 3 novels, singletons, well worth the read, very enjoyable books. I gave a review in my channel, a well viewed review of the 3 books. That's the 2-time World Fantasy Award winner, Carl Edward Wagner, Gods in Darkness. Well worth a read. And that's what I read during the holidays last year. And of course, there's also the Fritz Lieber, the Swordmasters series. And this 3 Swords. So it has the six volume, originally published in paperback. It's a compendium of novels and stories of there's Swords and Deviltry, Swords Against Death, Swords in the Mist. And it's a compendium of stories, really. And it tells you there's the induction, the Snow Women, Unholy Grail, Ilmed and Lankmar. That's Swords and Devilry. And then Swords Against Death has the Circle Curse, Jewels in the Forest, Thieves' House, and Bleak Shore. And Swords in the Mist has the Cloud of Heat, and so on. As you can see, this is an excellent series if you want to spend the time to enjoy Fritz Lieber at his best in Fafhrd in the Grey Mouser series of adventures. This is the books to get. And there's more. And there's more. Lots of reading you can do during the holidays. There's this. There's the Book of Skaith by Lee Brackett. And what does it feature? We got the adventures of Eric John Stark, the Ginger Star, the Hounds of Skaith, and the Reavers of Skaith. Alright. The first novel was The Black Amazon of Mars, which I showed in a previous video, the actual pulp. And there you go, Lee Brackett's The Book of Skaith, featuring Eric John Stark. Nice book club. Alright, there's that one. What's more? Is there more? There's the John D. MacDonald Shades of Travis McGee. And you have The Quick Red Fox, Pale Grey for Guilt, and Dress Her in Indigo. That's the Shades of Travis McGee. If you enjoy Travis McGee and his the aforementioned color-coded books, these three Singleton novels are well worth the read. I picked this up at a library, a discard. So that's The Quick Red Fox, Pale Grey for Guilt, and Dress Her in Indigo. It's a well-read copy. Alright, there's that. And then there's The Bounty Hunter Wars. And these are the three novels that feature our Mandalorian protagonist, Boba Fett, in all his glory. In the first, it's the post, after he fell into the pit, the Sarlacc, I think it was called. This tells the story of what happens afterwards. And it's a great space opera adventure, as only K.W. Jeter is capable of writing. It's well worth the read just because he's an excellent writer. That's K.W. Jeter, The Bounty Hunter Wars. Alright. Then we have this, which was meant to be a single book. It's called The Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe. This is an excellent sit down and meditate. Now, I did read the review in the Encyclopedia of Fantasy. In the review, like good science fiction writers, many of them, especially if they're Christian, are influenced by a Jesuit named Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who died on April the 10th, 1955. And of course, if you know who I am, I studied Teilhard's work, and I have all 14 of his collected works, his oeuvres. And anyway, it's hard to see the influence of Teilhard, as it says in the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, on this. I can see it in the writings of someone like Philip K. Dick and someone like Julian May, which is kind of obvious, but here, not so obvious. aside from the Latinisms that he uses throughout the text. I read the first novel. It's fascinating reading, The Shadow of the Torturer. And I did enjoy it, and it was a fast-paced read, but very introspective and told from his perspective. So it was an unusual book, to say the least. I will eventually go through and finish the rest of the book, because according to what people are saying, Gene Wolfe intended this Book of the New Sun to be one single novel. Anyway, so that's that. That's Gene Wolfe's The Book of the New Sun. There's that one. And this one is a traditional trilogy. This is C.J. Cherry's The Book of Morgaine, which I read from cover to cover. And it was, as I reflected on what I was reading, I realized there's not much adventure and action in the book. There's a lot of world building, and a lot of bantering between her and what's his name, Vadney. Yeah, I forget his name. It's Vadney or something like that. Vanyi. And but it has a good denouement. It does have to do with the closing of the gates. Each of the novels have to do with the closing of the gates in the end. So it's what leads up to that. And things don't always go the way, I don't want to spoil the story for you, but it certainly doesn't go all the way that we expect. So that's The Book of Morgaine, C.J. Cherry. It features the 3 novels, The Gate of Ivrael, The Well of Shion, and Fires of Azeroth. All right, so that's that. And if you really want to get into good science fiction, this comes recommended by our friend, the Outlaw Bookseller. This is Triplicity by Thomas M. Dish. And this features 3 singletons: Echo Round His Bones, The Genocides, and The Puppies of Terra. So there's that, Triplicity. An interesting book. I will read it and give my comments. That's all I'll say about that. Triplicity. And let's see what else I have just to show. There's more, obviously. I'm going to show a few. And then, of course, there's the Gilt Edge Bonds, which is Ian Fleming's work. And it features the 3 first novels of James Bond: The Casino Royale, From Russia with Love, and Dr. No. And I think Dr. No is considered to be the best of the 3. But here it is, all in nice cover. This was published back in 1961, so this is actually a first. This is the cover that it originally appeared. This is from the first edition of Thunderball by Jonathan Cape, publisher. And this cost a pretty penny. That's Jonathan Cape, first. And yeah, it says first published 1961. As you can see there, this is the world first edition of Thunderball. You can see, but if you want to spend time reading more Bond, you can read this with an excellent introduction that I thoroughly enjoyed by a person who knew Ian Fleming personally, a guy named Paul Gallico. And I did read a book by Gallico called The Snow Goose. So anyway, these are what I would describe as holiday reads. So I hope you enjoyed and get the opportunity to sit back, relax, and enjoy some good holiday reading, especially if you have the time in between all the celebrating that you may be doing. You can enjoy some good books. All right, so that's that. That's The Gilt-Edged Bond. That's by Ian Fleming, the first 3 novels. I thought I'd finish with that because that's a nice little find there. All right. Thanks for watching. Remember the thumbs up And feel free to make comments. And maybe you want to say what you enjoy reading during the holidays. I've been reading a lot of Donald Hamilton and the Matt Helm. I'm almost finished the fourth book of the Matt Helm series. I'm reading, I read three out of order. One of them I read out of order. The first two I read in order. And anyway. So I hope you enjoyed watching, and remember to give me that thumbs up for like. This is the Holiday Reads, and feel free to make your comments. All right, thanks. Bye.